Good morning. I'm currently preparing to go to work. It's freezing cold outside, so I can't say I'm looking forward to it. I work outdoors, I'm a window cleaner, and I thought I'd like to share a few ideas with you before setting off. First and foremost, I'd like to discuss some inconsistencies between what the government says and does, because as we've seen recently, that occurs quite a lot. There's quite a few inconsistencies between what we're told to believe and what we're actually observing with our own eyes. So, I want to first and foremost talk about backup systems, right? This might seem like an odd thing to refer to with reference to government, but every large corporation takes such care when setting up backup systems, and there's a reason for that. You know, if the system crashes in one way or fails in one way, you have something else already waiting on standby to take over. You see, the fact that we don't have that in government, well, speaks for itself. Here, in short, there are three main types of backup: full, incremental, and differential. This is in reference to business, or systems, all systems. Whatever system you're developing, you set up a backup system so that if everything that's currently operating fails, you can take a step back to the previous system, to the way it was working before. You can replace those currently in positions of authority with new ones, so that the whole system doesn't just crash and collapse because of a single mistake. And here's the thing: catastrophic things can occur. They can occur, okay? And we've seen that recently with what happened at the Capitol. You know, it very nearly ended up in a place, and understandably so, considering the fact that people's voices are being ignored. You know, or there's a lot of evidence to suggest that it very nearly ended in catastrophe. Could it be in a civil war because of it? There still could. You know, and there's nothing in place for in case a majority decides that they're taking back their country, which under the Constitution they are supposed to be able to do. It's almost as if the system is designed to collapse or fail if those currently in positions of power lose that power. So, in short, there are three main types of backup. Let's take a look at how backups work generally within business and systems. You can do it with your computer as well. This is how it works on a computer. There's full, incremental, and differential. You get a full backup, which is, as the name suggests, everything is backed up. Okay, absolutely everything. There's backup stages in place so that you can take a step back to a previous state. Now these take longer to implement. You know, I'm not getting into pros and cons. I'm just explaining to you that there's a great deal of effort put in place within systems and within technology to make sure when a thing fails that there are things ready to take over in place of it. And in business, you know, there's always a backup employee, someone always ready to take the place and move into that position, should that be required. You get incremental backups and you get differential backups. There's a variety of different ways you can back a thing up, not just in business. Okay, so it's kind of my thoughts on that. But why are we looking at this? Because it evidences the level of dedication present in large corporations where the priority is preservation of the system before all else. Yeah? Now, when you think about a government, their system facilitates the comfort, or it's supposed to, it facilitates the comfort and the livelihoods and the survival of a variety of people. Yeah, so that system preservation should be of higher priority than their position within that system. But it's almost as if the system collapses without them in those positions. Yeah. So, let's look at the alternative: living in the woods, or off the sweat of your own brow. You know, tilling the land. But let's go right back. Let's go to actually just living in the woods as an individual, surviving, hunting, harvesting. That's not the right word. Foraging for fruit and berries and weeds and whatever else you can eat. Okay, now we did this for generations. Okay, so I know people will say, "Oh, you can't live in the woods, you die." It's like, no, we lived in the woods. We did it for a very long time. It is possible, not only possible, but doable over vast expanses of time. It was possible, I should say. It no longer is. We've lost those skills. They're not taught in schools or within the education system. I mean, again, it's like there's no... It's like everybody is entirely dependent upon the current way things work, or otherwise they would die. They would die without it. And it's alright saying, oh well, schools' responsibility is to teach academic subjects. It's not to prepare for catastrophes and that. Except for schools do prepare kids for catastrophes, natural disasters, and of course a virus, you know, that has a 99.97% survival rate, but actual Armageddon, you know, actual Armageddon, you'll probably be fine, kids. Don't worry about that. We don't need to prepare you for how to survive in the woods. I mean, you talk to kids nowadays about how their food's prepared, where it comes from. You know, it's like, how old are most kids nowadays before they realise that what they're eating was an animal once? It's like they're eating chicken. Sorry, bear with me. They're eating chicken. They know what a chicken is, but they don't make that connection. They never make that connection to the fact that chicken is a chicken, at least not until they're quite a bit older, right? And they're horrified, a lot of them. Some of them don't eat meat for a week or so. And the point is, we become so detached from it that if they actually had to do what was required to prep a bird, and to skin it and feather it and whatever else, and cook it in the wild, deal with the blood and everything else, somebody else handles all that for you, right? Now, I'm not saying that that shouldn't be the case. It's nice to have it all prepared for you. It makes sense, it's practical. However, it's also practical to prepare for Armageddon, should it arrive, okay? And I'm not hoping for Armageddon. Things are comfortable, they're good. We should work with what works and try to improve it. We should try to improve, not replace what is, in my opinion. But we should also be preparing people for the fact that maybe one day they'll need to survive on their own again. Maybe one day... Hell knows, things could go catastrophically wrong at any time. Okay, it doesn't even need to be man-made. It could be a meteorite that wipes out most of society. And you see it all the time. They explore this idea in Armageddon-like movies, don't they? Post-apocalyptic games and movies. The fact that we're not prepared for it concerns me greatly. Okay, because most of us wouldn't know what to do. Right. Vote verification. This is very topical because it's something we've been dealing with at the minute. And I've been saying for ages that we can put man on the moon. We can put man on the moon. But we can't verify the vote to the public. Okay? Now, I'm going to read another one because I found this online recently and it's spot on. It is spot on. People are waking up to the idea that maybe what we're told is the case isn't the case. Okay? It's not considered as crazy as it once was. So I found this online. We'll stop a football game to drag out chains and view a play in super slow-mo from 8 different angles, but won't verify the integrity of our election. Come on, come on, right? So that's enough said on vote verification. Backup systems. If the thing seems designed to collapse without those currently in power remaining in power, or without things continuing exactly the way they are, there's probably a reason for that, all things considered. I mean, it's not rocket science, and yet somehow we've managed to achieve one and not the others. It's not even as if we haven't managed to achieve the others. We've managed to achieve it in business systems and other areas, but we've not done it within our political system, where the consequences of failure are so much more severe. Yeah, it's almost as if the consequences aren't viewed as severe, or they want the consequences to be so severe, because there's no way. There's no way that the people we appoint as the most intelligent people, the most capable people of managing systems, haven't thought that things will go catastrophically wrong. They've just not prepared for it, you know. Right, so, Personally, I don't believe that these oversights are a coincidence. That's what I'm saying, okay? And there's a point where you've got to start questioning that. And here's the thing, with what's happened recently, it's no longer conspiratorial. It's no longer crazy person talk. It's no longer magical thinking. To believe that, or to, not to question your government's intentions. It's no longer magical thinking. People are starting to become aware of that idea. Not anymore, anyway. It is in fact believing in unicorns if you don't look in your environment for what is actually there. That's believing in unicorns. Okay. Light up my comments section. Okay. Second thought of the day before heading out to work, because I have these deep thoughts before going for a long day's work. There's this idea, and I hate this idea, this expression. He needs knocking down a peg or two, or he needs putting in his place. Yeah, hate this expression. Or he needs reminding of his place. And here's why. Because it speaks a great deal about how society is conditioned, somewhat. Yeah, it speaks a great deal about how we're conditioned to think a certain way. And here's why. So here's what I hate about the statement and the fragile little powder puffs that believe it. I've seen people beat up or attacked, okay, or shouted down in the street for walking around with their head held too high or thinking too much of themselves. You see it sometimes. A guy's he's not sure of himself and he'll walk around a little too much. The chest's out, the head's right back and chin's up, and he's just trying to have a little confidence in his environment, okay? And if you're not one of those people that's accepted within the area, as in that position, if you're not viewed within the social hierarchy as allowed, we'll say allowed, to walk around with your head held high, or to try to have a little self-respect, then you get issues. People give you trouble. It's a very fragile way to view the world. It really is, and I'll continue to explain why that is. It makes the assumption and claim that you know better than the other person where their place is and what exactly they are in this world. Okay? When of course the other person is the only person in their own mind, and experiencing the environment from their own unique perspective. Each of us knows what we are. Okay, each of us knows what we are best, or what we want to be, or what we're trying to be. That's not for somebody else to decide on our behalf. It's a whole other conversation, but societally it works out very well if people can convince one another, okay, and are convinced that they need to stay in their lane. Yeah, and it's an incredibly egotistical and dictatorial, fragile way to view the world, because it says you know better than the other person why they do what they do, and better than everybody else why they do what they do. Okay? Not only does it say that, it says you know what their potential is or is not. Yeah. And this last one is no doubt the reason behind the behaviour, because if you know what they are or are not, then you can also know, or at least convince other people, and even the person themselves, of what they will be or what they will not be. So you can control other people. It's a control thing. Yeah. It's evidence of an inability to view the world from inside your own mind alone. If you're indeed concerned constantly with how others perceive themselves. Furthermore, it evidences an altogether dissatisfaction with your own lot in life. Why else, if that person's behaviour doesn't infringe upon your own activities and those of others in some objectively verifiable way, can you not do your own thing and leave them to do the same? Yeah? It's evidence of a fragility. It is. It's like you can't tolerate another human being allowing themselves to perceive themselves how they want to, Here's another thing about it as well. Let's look at the statements. Not so much with he needs knocking down a peg or two. That's very obvious. He's saying he needs knocking down, okay? But when you say he needs putting in or reminding of his place, there's no specification within that statement. There is no specification within that statement of where that other person's place is. Yeah, you never hear that statement used in reference to elevating somebody or helping them get into a position of authority, or helping them achieve what it is they want to achieve in life. You never hear it said as a positive, do you? You don't see somebody trying really hard and go, he needs putting in his place. Let's help him get there. That doesn't happen. There's this automatic assumption that his place or somebody else's place is to be viewed below you. Yeah? It's like it doesn't even need to be specified where that place is. If it's not you, then another person's place must be below you. Very egotistical, very fragile, very dictatorial. Yeah, it's a wrong way to view the world, in my opinion. Okay, and you're doing the enemy's work for him so that he needn't lift a finger. Okay, and by the enemy I mean corruption and greed at the highest level of the establishment. Yeah, because here's the thing. Those sorts of people don't need to pop a lid, and this is the corrupt and the greedy that are at the top of the system, yeah? And there's evidence, a lot of evidence to suggest they exist. They don't need to pop a lid, okay, on the lower class, if you like, if we're constantly doing all we can to ensure none of us are going anywhere. So if we're constantly dragging each other down, they don't need to pop a lid on it, yeah? They've got you doing their dirty work. Okay, have a think about that. For those of you interested in that idea, I would check out Terry Pratchett's crab pot, which is actually derived from an old Chinese proverb, the crab bucket. Okay, I'll try and include some links in the description to these things. But yeah, it's you don't want to be doing corruption's dirty work for it, because it's doing nothing on your behalf, and you're doing everything on it. So. I would like to offer an alternative expression. My fellow man needs encouraging into his rightful place, and, separate from my own interests and pursuits, I don't get to decide where that might be. Okay? It would be a very different world if our default position was to revere one another, to revere other people. Okay? And their rights, to revere and protect their rights. It would be a very different world. And I think the fact that this statement doesn't even need explaining to anybody, people just understand what it means. Yeah, he needs putting in or reminding of his place, without any specification of that place being beneath you, above you, or even level with you. Okay? This is a hell of a lot about the psychology within our society, or the psychology of human beings even. Maybe it's more of just a human thing, and that's why societies have developed that way. But it's unhealthy. It's unhealthy, it's dictatorial, it's fragile, it's powder puff. And if we're going to get anywhere as a species, we're going to need to overcome that first. Just a thought. Thanks for watching, and God bless you all.